With Master Rule 5 coming around the corner in about 2 months after this video goes up, I wanted to talk about some of the decks that I'm looking forward to for Master Rule 5. This isn't a top 5 list of decks that I'm expecting to be meta, but more of just decks that give me the impression that they'll be more powerful come April 1st. Now, I might be a little bit biased in my choices, but out of the 4 that I chose, all 4 are decks that I already had experience with in the past and are, in my opinion, some of my favorite decks, which you can assume is why I'm excited to play them in April. Anyway, let's get started with our list. At number 1, we have Heroes, a fusion combo OTK deck that got some fantastic support in the last 2 Legendary Duelist sets. With the inclusion of Elemental Hero Sunrise and Evil Hero Malicious Bane, heroes have a plethora of choices and combos to choose from, ranging from setting up a Macrocosmos with Dark Claw, skill draining the board with Plasma, going in for lethal with your giant fusion monsters with Extra Hero Dread Decimator. The deck has a lot of choices it can do in its plays. Now as it is, heroes are extremely viable in Master Rule 4. They already have access to fantastic link monsters, which makes all their plays possible, but I feel like that with the changes coming with the new rules, heroes will have less obvious choke points that will stop their plays, and will open up new and interesting combos that are faster and more streamlined. Now that you don't have to focus on putting link monsters in the extra monster zone first, you don't have to make cards like Extra Hero Cross Crusader or Wonder Driver to extend your plays. Like for example, if your opponent puts out a board with several negates, it would be too risky to try and go into your link monsters. All of your heroes' link monsters have fantastic effects that either extend your plays or help you push for game, and now if you open good enough, you won't have to rely on their effects to achieve your end goal. More options is always better, especially in a combo deck where your goal is to use all of your tools you need to win your game. At number 2, we have SHADDOLL, another fusion archetype. This one is more focused on control and versatility, as setting up a construct or window is a huge threat to your opponent that's as easy to get on board as activating a single fusion spell and using materials from your deck. Dealing with more than one of them at the same time though? Sounds scary to me. SHADDOLL main deck monsters all have the same clause that get you certain effects when they are sent to the graveyard by an effect, which in most cases is going to be your poly. This generates a lot of advantage when you're constantly drawing cards or popping spell or traps, or even adding SHADDOLL monsters from your deck to your hand to fuse with later. One of the problems SHADDOLL had, especially with the pure version, is that they had no good link monsters to go into to start their plays. In fact, the one and only SHADDOLL link monster we have has arrows that point left and right. Not bottom left and bottom right, just left and right. Wonderful! But now you don't have to worry about this anymore with the deck. Just SHADDOLL fusion for any 2 monsters you want from your deck, and put that fusion sucker anywhere you want on the field. You do you. I'd definitely look into this deck going forward, especially with the new support coming out for it soon. It might be a deck that you'll want to practice and learn before you potentially have a format where this deck is a viable choice. At number 3, we have Invoked. Now I just want to say that Invoked is one of my personal favorite decks of all time. I used to play the Mech Knight variant for a long time, and that was a lot of fun to blind second and go for crazy OTKs with the Alistair Link monster. Though, to be fair, I'm not sure how big of a boost to the Mech Knight variant Master Rule 5 is. We'll have to see how well that turns out once the format is out and I have time to experiment more with it. But anyway, Invoked as a deck can be played in many ways, not just the way that I mentioned. You can have Wind Witches, Hand Trap Control, and there's even a SHADDOLL version of the deck that's running around. I'm definitely looking forward to making a deck that can put a Macabre and a Window on the board at the same time going first. Another thing I really like about the deck is how simple it is. Simple, in my opinion, always is better in a competitive card game. When you're in round 5 at a regional and you're trying to get your first top, you want to be feeling as awake and fresh as possible, and playing a simple deck just doesn't use as much energy thinking as a more complicated deck. Invoked fits the bill perfectly. In fact, to show you how easy it is to pilot one of these decks, I made this handy diagram that shows you how to play. It really is that simple. It starts to get a little bit more complicated depending on what version of the deck you play, but as far as the hand trap or just pure version, I guess you can call it, it's a simple deck, and that's great. I'm definitely going to be trying all these versions of the deck that I mentioned, and I'll be sure to report back with the results, because damn, I'm just excited for this format. I genuinely feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in a really good spot right now, especially after its latest ban list. Almost every deck right now is viable, and soon there's going to be a whole new way to play the game and experiment with new strategies. Fresh new blank slate for all the new players to figure out. Now before we go to number 4, I want to give some honorable mentions to a few decks that I feel will be good, but I can't with good faith put them on the main list. Reasons being that I either just don't understand the deck enough to talk about it, or I feel like that with the new murder ban list coming, the deck will have no chance of surviving as is in its current build. For our first, we have QUASAR Turbo, or rather, just generic synchro strategy in general. I haven't played many games against this deck, but the sheer amount of draw power synchros have with Formula Synchron, Hyper Librarian, and Stardust Charge Warrior is an insane amount of draw, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone found the magic formula that can make an impenetrable end board with this. For our second, we have FLUFFALS, another scary fusion combo deck similar to Heroes. Now without having to waste any resources on any link monsters, they can just spam fusions, popping cards with Tiger, sending monsters with Kraken, and bringing back as many fusions as they want with Sabertooth, which to me sounds a little terrifying. For our third, it's more of an observation than anything, but it's ORCUST. Despite the newest ban list, I don't see this deck going anywhere anytime soon, though it is harder than ever to get into your combos now with Harp banned. But either way, I believe this deck will only get better for one simple reason alone, and that's the ability to overlay Galatea from the extra monster zone to any monster zone. Dingirsu is an Xyz coming from the extra deck, so it can be placed anywhere on your field when it's coming out. So why not use this to our advantage and place Dingirsu in a main monster zone to free up our extra monster zone for more link plays? I can't think of a way to really abuse this yet, but it is something to keep in mind going forward. For our fourth, it's gonna have to be Paleozoics. You thought that one totally awesome was bad enough? Imagine having to have to deal with two of them. Before, what the deck had to do to get two Toads on the field, it had to first make a Miss Starboy in the extra monster zone, and I gotta say, doing so was a terrible use of resources. You can only ever really do it if you were really ahead in terms of game state, to the point that setting up two Toads would end the game, or if you really needed your Toad to have 27 attack. Either way, you never felt good going into Miss Starboy. Even when you did go into the star, you felt like you needed to use your Ronins to do it because using a Paleozoic monster would banish it. Anyway, really looking forward to having a play against two Toads in the future. And for our final deck for decks that I'm looking forward to in Master Rule 5, it's Marincess? Okay, yeah, it's this deck. Now, why would I put a Link deck in a video about Master Rule 5? Well, in my opinion, just because a deck isn't primarily a non-link deck doesn't mean it won't benefit from the new Master Rules, and as it turns out, Marincess actually gets a nice boost from it as well. In my current build with this deck, I'm trying a rank 4 engine full of water extenders like Silent Angler, White Stingray, and Aqua Spirit. Now, the deck has access to Bahamut Shark, so you don't have to run the Cloggy Frog engine anymore, Abyss Dweller to stop graveyard-based decks, and Honor Arc to steal problematic monsters. This wasn't possible in Master Rule 4 because all of your Marincess monsters' effects like Seahorse and Coral and Mandarin all would fill up the only arrows you had pointing to free zones. Now, you can put that Bahamut Shark anywhere you like and you don't have to worry about zone placements at all, and I feel like this will be a great boost to the deck. Imagine setting up Abyss Dweller against ORCUST when you haven't already equipped a Marble Rock on the field, or if your Honor Arc away your opponent's Dingirsu so you could go for lethal. Plus, with the removal of the frogs, you now have more room to put Marincess cards in. One theory I tried early on with this deck is running more Marincess cards so you're more likely to get a hit whenever you excavate with Blue Tang. But enough about that. Now that you don't have to run Bricky Frogs anymore, you can run more impactful cards. This should give you enough room to the deck that you can add and adjust cards as necessary to be ready for your meta, and I'm pretty excited for that. This is definitely a topic I'm going to go over in another video at some point, because I feel like this little nudge in the right direction is exactly what this deck needed. Anyway, this will wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll be here for the next one.